Can you?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. I'm quite delighted that Barbara Perlich gave her lecture before me because we have a quite similar approach to the Jewish community of Hornburg, which we made during a research project that we've done under the supervision of Alexander von Kinin in the years 2016 to 2018. This was carried out with Beit Filah, of course, the Center for Jewish Art, the State Museum in Braunschweig, the Landesmuseum, the Hornburg Municipal Archives, and the Faculty of Theology at the Georg August University in Göttingen. And today I would like to show you some results of this. It's a very shortened version, but I can hope we will learn something about this. Hornburg is located in the northern Harzvorland, about 35 kilometers south of Braunschweig. The castle and the settlement bear the same name and were first mentioned in a document by around 994. Its successor building stood on a spur of the Kleiner Fallstein, which you can see here. We have the big Fallstein and the Kleiner Fallstein. This is a mountain spur, a horn probably, which gave the castle its name. It was often fought over and then rebuilt and reconstructed. The strategically located castle came into the possession of the bishops of Halberstadt in the 11th century. The settlement developed below the castle. North of Hornburg, there is a swampy lowland, the Großes Bruch, which you can see here, which spans from Oschersleben in the east to roundabout Schladen and Hornburg in the west, which is not good to be transgressed by persons. To the west, a gravel plain formed another area hostile to traffic. Thus, in this area around Hornburg, the spheres of influence of the bishops of Halberstadt, the bishops of Hildesheim, and the dukes of Saxony were separated from each other, which you can see here on a historic map from 1724. Hornburg is situated here, right around the border of these three states. An early medieval road led from Hildesheim via Schladen to Hornburg, another one from Braunschweig via Wolfenbüttel and along the edge of the Großer Bruch over a dam to Hornburg, then further along the Kleiner Fallstein to Halberstadt and over the Harz to Erfurt. Since the reign of King Frederick I in Prussia, the route of the Prussian post led from Memel in eastern Prussia to the western parts of the country to Kleve via Berlin, Halberstadt and Hornburg. During the 30 Years' War, Wolfenbüttel, the strongest fortress in northern Germany, less than 20 kilometers from Hornburg, was occupied by imperial troops in 1627. Repeated sieges by the Dukes of Brunswick-Lüneburg and their allies remained unsuccessful for a long time, and peace negotiations finally provided for a surrender to the Duke in 1642. Hornburg was involved in this warfare. The occupation of the castle changed several times after heavy fighting, and in 1642 Hornburg was in imperial hands. This will become important later. Hornburg had once belonged to the High Chapter of Halberstadt, and when this was secularized in 1648, fell along with the Principality of Halberstadt to the House of Brandenburg. It was already in 1553 when the first Lutheran pastor worked at the Hornburg church. The year before, the village had received the right to hold markets. There were no manufacturers in Hornburg whose products could have been sold on long-distance markets. In the 18th century, most of Hornburg citizens were craftsmen, only a few merchants. In addition, many lived from brewing beer as well as growing hops in small gardens for sale and farming on small plots of land, to the products of which were mainly used for their own needs. In 1806, Hornburg became part of the Kingdom of Westphalia in the department Saale, then in 1815 of the Prussian province of Saxony. In the 19th century, only two agriculture-related industrial enterprises were founded: a sugar factory in 1870 and a manufacturer for agricultural equipment developed from Wheelwright's business starting in 1867. A connection to the state railroad network was missing until 1895. This was important because a lot of the Jewish community in the 19th century went away. In 1941, an exchange of the territory between Prussia and Brunswick took place. For the reason of war economy, Hornburg was incorporated from the district of Wernigerode into the district of Wolfenbüttel and is now part of Lower Saxony. It was probably because of the border location and the transport connections that the first Jew asked for permission to settle and to earn his living in Hornburg from the Archduke Leopold Wilhelm of Austria, who was contemporaneously the bishop of the Halberstadt diocese. It was in 1642 when Moses Isaac Schöning received his permission, and he had rendered service to the imperial occupation because he had rendered service to the imperial occupation in Wolfenbüttel. The Jewish community began to grow only slowly. The Jewish population had a peak in the middle of the 18th century. I guess I have the numbers here. At the time between 1762 and 1766, it also acquired a building as a school and teachers' residence and built its synagogue in its courtyard. The Jewish population fluctuated around the level of about 60 people in the following 100 years. Only in the middle of the 19th century, the number of Jewish inhabitants decreased due to rural exodus. And in the year 1850, there was a cholera epidemic, so we see a little drop in the Jewish inhabitants here. During our projects, we were able to prove the migration of individual persons to the nearest large cities, to the Ruhr area, or even to the US. The latest two persons, which are given here in the numbers, are the Geschwister Schwabe, the siblings Schwabe, which you can see here. On the left side, we have Sigmund Schwabe, who died around 1920. And on the right side, we have Amalie Schwabe, here right in the middle of this festive group, which is a little shaking here. She died in December 1923. So we have a span from 1642 to 1923 where the Jewish community of Hornburg existed and was active. The structure of the town of Hornburg, as shown in this map, is dominated by the structure of the former castle and its remains. We have it here down in the corner. To the west and the north, the actual town adjoins. It is characterized by 5 gates, which formed the entrance to the town in the Middle Ages. We have the Braunschweiger Tor, which is here up in the north. We have the Dammtor, which is here. We have the Vorwerkstor, which is here. We have the Halberstädter Tor, around here, and the Pfarrhofstor, around here.
Mirko, I don't see any sign on your presentation.
Sign? Inwiefern?
Also ich sehe keinen Pfeil oder Laserpointer.
Ah, okay, ihr könnt das nicht sehen. Okay. Also in der Probe haben wir es gesehen. Ich muss gucken.
Oder vielleicht ist es nur bei mir so.
Dann beschreibe ich es vielleicht einfach. Okay, danke für den Hinweis. In 1512, 120 houses were destroyed in a city fire. The plot structure and the houses, built mainly in the Renaissance and Baroque periods, have been preserved essentially in their original form. Only few buildings have been added to the cityscape. Most of them were built outside the original city perimeter. Large quarters were built only after the Second World War, or added to the city core. The present plan was drawn by F. Lisse, who had been a teacher in Hornburg. His plan shows the building structure round about 1940 and distinguishes between the residential buildings, which are the black ones, and outbuildings such as stables and sheds, which are the red ones. It is also interesting because it shows the insurance numbers of the buildings and the street names. In the small detail on the right of the plan, you can see the building marked as you can see a building that is marked with a cross, which is also named by the number 332. This is the synagogue, and along the street we have a really large building, which was the Jewish school and the house of the teacher and the rabbi. I would like to inform you already that the house with the number 313, which is right across the street, could be identified as the residential house of Moses Isaac Schöning, the first Jew in Hornburg. In the further course of our projects, with the help of the fire registers, we were able to locate another Jewish temple in the backyard of the numbers 309 and 308, which are on the right-hand side of the detailed map. The latter was used between around about 1720 and to the establishment of the big synagogue. During our research project, we evaluated preserved objects, archival testimonies, and pictorial evidences concerning the Jewish community in Hornburg. Our basis for dealing with the Jewish topography were the map works of F. Lisse and others, which are kept in the town archive and in the local history museum of Hornburg. You can see our redrawing here on the left-hand side, and a detailed map of the Jewish cemetery, which is when you see the map of the city right in the south of the map. It's only indicated as an outline. Professor Bert Schaller and Dan Bondi from the Georg-August-Universität Göttingen transcribed and translated the inscriptions of the extant tombstones from the Jewish cemetery. The extract with names and life data from the preserved 86 gravestones could be found here. It forms the personal record of the Jews who lived or at least were buried in Hornburg. Among them is also Moses Isaac Schöning with the number 83, which is right in the south of the building. If you don't see my pointer, it's right in the south of near to the entrance that is today existing. With the gravestones, we have, besides the residential house shown before, already the second topos, which can be connected with the so-called founder of the Jewish community. The intense comparison of the data from the gravestones with the persons and data from the records and inscriptions that we have on the various objects preserved from the Jewish community promised to be a rewarding research task. Subsequently, we evaluated the 44 archival files available in the municipal archives under the collective term Judensachen, Jewish matters. A few more files could be found in state and national archives. The character of the accessible holdings related primarily to the reactions to laws and requirements by the government, or disputes with the non-Jewish majority with the non-Jewish majority community. Unfortunately, there are no records of the Jewish community itself. The comparison and synthesis of the data obtained from different sources presented several problems. First, the gravestone inscription mostly do not mention surnames. Thus, even in the 19th century, only the Friedberg and Kramer families immortalized themselves by name in the cemetery. This may be due, among other things, to the fact that the gravestones here in Hornburg were placed in lying position, so that the back of the stone could not have been used for German inscriptions. Other uncertainties were provided by the few, but nevertheless occurring changes in the assignment of the insurance numbers. On the one hand, the system was changed once in 1808 under French rule, and on the other hand, individual buildings on various properties were demolished, merged, or added to another property. Insurance numbers from the various sources therefore form a slight blur over the course of time. On the one hand, public buildings such as the church, the town hall, or even the synagogue served as fixed points for our observation. On the other hand, when it comes to tax collections, for example, the data are evaluated in systematic forms, as we have seen already in Erfurt. The tax collectors have always gone through the city according to the same scheme, so we have, if we compare the different archival information, we have always the same structure where the tax collectors went through the city. We therefore believe that we can trace the Jewish topography for individual areas with relative precision over the approximately 280 years period in which the Jewish community existed. As an example, two conditions are shown here. Here the first, this is the map of 1767, and I will show you later the map of 1868. The map here of 1767 shows the concentration of the Jewish community around the synagogue. This is by the time that the synagogue was built. As I mentioned, it was built from 1762 to 1766, which was the inauguration date. The families of the map shows the concentration of the Jewish community around the synagogue. Only individual houses are situated in other quarters. The families of Moses Wolf and Meyer Abraham have their dwelling place at the market. Both households have 8 persons each. Among them, 2 employees are mentioned in addition to the children. Other persons, such as the Relicta, which is the widow of the Jewish Spaniard, lives with the daughter in a Christian house, so she does not live alone. We know this from archival files. About 100 years later, the Jewish topography of Hornburg shows a different picture. The plan of 1868 shows that the Schwabe family dominates the Jewish community with 7 households. Only 3 other surnames, Lilienfeld, Kramer, Friedberg, occur. The Jewish inhabitants moved their homes from the vicinity of the synagogue and are now concentrated in the representative locations of the town. This is the marketplace and the connecting or side streets. From the change of location alone, only one may conclude that here we have social and economic advancement of the individual Jewish families. concluding, we can see that in Hornburg there was no closed Jewish quarter. The first community settled around the synagogue or the buildings, the three spots which were used as synagogues, and then spread around the whole town, which is quite interesting. But we have some of the quarters which were not inhabited by the Jewish families, which is here up in the north through the Braunschweig Gate and round about the Pfarrhofstraße and the Schlossbergstraße, which is quite interesting. We haven't found a solution or explanation for this. Thank you.